welcome back to another episode of the Seattle Sports Show where we love Seattle Pro Sports. I'm your host, Mikey, and here I am. It's been about 3 weeks since the last episode. There was so much I was looking forward to getting to. The last couple of episodes that I got to record, they were only Seahawks post game shows. It's probably been about a month since the last time I've done a regular episode. If you've been listening and paying attention, you know I'm a mailman. So, yeah, that time of year is just very busy for me with that. The holiday stuff, having 5 kids. I just didn't have time to record when I wanted to record. And then actually today, I was really looking forward because, like I said, the last couple of episodes I got to record were Seattle post game shows, and even that's been 3 weeks. I missed the last 3 games. So that means it's been, like I said, like a month since I recorded an episode where I talked about all the other Seattle teams that I love and that you love. And I was really looking forward to talking about all of those things. And then, talking about my disappointment in the last 3 weeks of the Seahawks season. And we will get to that. I will do that in another episode. Just so happens on the day that I was excited that, hey, I'm going to have time today to be able to sit down and record an episode about Seattle sports. One of the things that I love the most. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to catch up on all these things I haven't got to talk about yet. The biggest thing that could possibly happen in the news right now concerned with Seattle sports happened. And that's what we got to talk about. That's the only thing I'm going to talk about today. I'm not going to talk about all the other things. So I actually decided to have a plan where I'm going to try to record more episodes more often. And that will allow me to create shorter episodes so that I can put out the episodes more often and have time to record more often. Like, again, somebody who's, a mailman, has 5 kids. It's not always to be able to sit down, for an hour straight and record. My most successful podcast, it's like a 10-15 minute episode podcast that I do daily. So I'm not going to do Seattle sports daily, but the plan going forward is I will do, that I'm going to try to do a few episodes a week. They'll be shorter episodes. We'll hit the topics of whatever happened in the last few days. So not every episode is going to cover every team, but it'll cover the news that's important to cover over the last couple of days, or just like, cover topics, about certain teams. I think that will make it a lot more fun going forward as well, because then instead of worrying about like, oh, I have an hour, I have to talk about every team, and then so maybe something else gets cut short. If I do multiple shorter episodes, that means I could spend a little bit more time on a specific topic, for a specific team during that episode. So that's what's going forward. But we're not really here to talk about this show. You don't care about that. You want to talk about Pete Carroll. And by now, of course, I'm recording this January 10th. It's 10 p.m. at night. So you've had all day long to hear about it, and you've heard about it. Pete Carroll and the Seahawks have agreed to part ways. Let's go ahead and read this statement that came from the team and Jody Allen. After thoughtful meetings and careful consideration for the best interest of the franchise, we have amicably agreed with Pete Carroll that his role will evolve from head coach to remain with the organization as an advisor. Pete is the winningest coach in Seahawks history, brought the city its first Super Bowl title and created a tremendous impact over the past 14 years on the field and in the community. His expertise in leadership and building a championship culture will continue as an integral part of our organization moving forward. He will always be a beloved member of the Seahawks family. All right, so that was the official statement from the Seahawks and Jody Allen. And to me, this was shocking. Absolutely shocking. I could not believe that it happened today. I had a feeling that this could be something that was coming because in the past, Pete Carroll would normally do his postseason press conference like the day after the season ended. And we're talking, days were going by and we weren't getting that press conference yet. So, really wondering, okay, so what's different this year? What's going on? And now we know. Him and Jody were, and John Schneider as well. It sounds like they were having meetings talking about what's the future of this team going forward, what's the future of the players, staff, and Pete himself going forward. And they all came to an agreement that it would be in the best interest of the team, and for Pete to relinquish his head coaching job and move into an advisor role. Now, I don't know if that's really going to happen, but we can talk about that in a minute. It's just the important thing is that we are moving on from Pete Carroll as our head coach. Again, just amazing. He's the best coach that the Seahawks ever had. Most successful, the best. He's the best coach that coached the best team that we had. Overall, he was 137, 89, and 1. That gave him a 606 winning percentage over a 14-year period. We're talking about 14 seasons, a Super Bowl win, 2 Super Bowl appearances in total. 11 out of 14 of those seasons were winning seasons with him as the head coach. And you have to remember, 2 of those seasons where he had losing seasons were the very first 2 seasons as head coach. And you have to remember how bad of a state this roster was in when he took over. So taking over a team that was just in a horrible, horrible place, getting them to a 7-9 record, getting them into the playoffs with a 7-9 record one year, and then winning a playoff game as well. That's really, really amazing. The 137 wins and the 606 winning percentage, those are both the highest in Seahawks franchise history. 10 playoff wins. That's obviously the most playoff wins that the Seahawks have by a single coach. In fact, it's more playoff wins than all the other head coaches that the Seahawks have had combined. But just that 10-win playoffs alone since 2010, since he was hired, is tied for third most among NFL head coaches. I saw earlier tonight Brock Heward put out a tweet talking about how since Pete has been hired, again, 14 seasons, on average, during that time period, every other team in the NFL has had 4 coaches. Okay, so obviously there's a couple other teams that have had coaches for uh, a long period of time. I mean, we just lost to one of them recently, the Steelers with Mike Tomlin, but uh, you know, as Seahawks fans, we got to feel pretty lucky that we had such a successful uh, head coach for a long time. He got to stick around for 14 seasons because of his success. Um, the other teams in the NFL that are averaging 4 coaches during that same, 4 coaching changes during that same time period is because they were not winning. That's the reason why they were changing coaches 4 times in a 14-year period. So that again, that's just another testament to Pete and how good of a coach he was and is still in my eyes. That he did something very rare, especially today. It is not easy for head coaches to have a long run. The leash is very short across the entire NFL. Teams don't give head coaches a long time to figure it out. Again, you're looking at 2 or 3 years, and then most head coaches, if they're not successful in that time period, they're out. And that doesn't even mean you have to have losing records. We've seen just this year alone, teams with winning records, teams that have had coaches take their teams to the playoffs in recent years, those coaches being fired this year. So again, that's just to point out how lucky we are that we had Pete Carroll as our head coach. Now going forward, they say he will be an advisor. If that is true, I would absolutely love that. I think Pete Carroll is a brilliant football coaching mind. I think he gets today's game. I think he gets today's players. And as he said in his press conference, this league should really be all about the players. That's the most important thing. As he said, it's not the owners, it's not the coaches, it's the players. That's the most important thing in the game, is the players. And I feel like that's something that he always understood, and that's why you see today at his press conference players showing up to his press conference to hear him say goodbye. That's why you see on social media just tons of players giving Pete Carroll support and congratulations on the career that he had. And there's a lot of players out there saying how much of a positive impact they had or Pete had on their careers that you would not expect. Again, you're going to see some of these players talk about how he was more than just the coach them, but somebody who gave them life advice or helped them through tough times and all kinds of things. And I think that's why the word is out there that the Seattle Seahawks organization is a good culture to be in, and why free agents want to come here. If you've been a fan of the Seahawks for a very long time, you'll know that is not and has not always been the case. But there are players today that want to come to the Seahawks for the culture alone. And I think that's something that was the best part of what Pete Carroll did as a coach, was understanding today's player and giving them platform to be the best that they could be on the field, and then also trying to help them be the best they could be off the field. And that doesn't always work out, but for the players that it does work out for, it really works out. You remember Russell Wilson being here and all the great stuff that he did in our community. Look at Bobby Wagner, what he did in the community while he was here the first time, and then already, you know, uh, being back here, and again being up for a Walter Payton Man of the Year award again. You know, Pete really understood players and took the time to understand his players, to know not just who they were as football players and who they wanted to be as football players, but who they wanted to be as human beings. And I think that's a great thing that should be commended for sure, because that is exactly what you want from a coach. Now, again, I think it would be great to have him. If he really is going to stay an advisor, I think that would be great, because I think that would just help make sure that that culture sticks around and you don't lose that culture, because you want some semblance of that culture to stick around to make sure it doesn't go away. Because remember, all the players from like the best era that Pete had, those players are all gone. Bobby, he's the last man standing. He's still here, but he's a free agent now. He might not be back. I mean, maybe he sees Pete Carroll retire this year. Maybe he decides he doesn't want to be. But maybe if Pete Carroll is going to be here as an advisor still, maybe he says, okay, I can still stick around because I know I have somebody I can talk to still, that, you know, I went to battle with, and who I know gets me, type of thing, you know. And you know, Bobby Wagner just led the NFL in tackles once again this year, so you know, it's not going to be a bad thing if he wants to be back next year, and if he wants to be back with these Seahawks. Again, because you want to keep somebody around from that, you know, that helped create this culture, so that it will continue to move forward, and the next generation and the generation after that can, hopefully it just keeps passing down the line, right? So that way we have players that talk about, hey, I really love that organization, I love what they do there. You know what, I'm going to tell other players about it, and then word gets out, and you hear about players saying, I keep hearing about this organization that the Seahawks have and how it's really great to be there. Maybe I should go be there and check it out for myself. We've been lucky that has been the case for us over the last 14 years. So, you know, if he sticks around as an advisor, the other thing that we need to know now is what's going to be the scenario with the next head coach, right? That could be very interesting. If Pete Carroll is in the building still, does the new head coach say, "Hey, you know, the old ex coach is still here too"? That's kind of awkward. Or, you know, are they willing to just say, "Hey, this is Pete Carroll. Yeah, he's 72 years old, and that means he's been in the business for a long time. That means he's been coaching for a long time. That means I can go to him for a lot of wisdom." That's another reason why, you know, if Pete really does stick around, I love that move. because just the wisdom and knowledge he has as a coach, I think could be so valuable to anybody that would take this job. Now, speaking of people that would take this job, let's talk about it. We've thanked Pete here for the last, I don't know, close to 20 minutes now. And, let's start talking about what kind of happens next or what we want to see next. Now, I'm not somebody who wanted to see Pete Carroll go because I think he still has what it takes to be a head coach and to be an excellent head coach and could get the most out of his players. That obviously has not happened the last 2 seasons, especially. But I believe he has that in him. Now, going forward, you want to find somebody who has that because, the reason why I'm not, I see people being excited that Pete Carroll is gone because that means we can move on to the next person, and they'll start the process of getting this team back into the playoffs, into the Super Bowl. Do people not remember Mike Holmgren? What happened next? Jim Mora. That's what happened next. Okay, guys. That's why I'm not excited. I'm also not upset. Because the results that we've gotten over the last number of years have been mediocre, and I don't want to be mediocre. I want to win a Super Bowl. I just don't. I'm just not going to say for certain, like so many people are saying, that they feel like for certain changing the head coach now is going to put us on the path to win a Super Bowl. I just wanted to caution you all that changing a coach does not mean you're going to win the Super Bowl. You could go the opposite direction, and you can go the opposite direction for a long time. We are very, very lucky that after 1 year of Jim Mora, Pete Carroll was the next hire. Because look around the league. Again, in the same period of time, the average NFL team, the same amount of time that Pete Carroll has been the head coach of the Seahawks, the average NFL team has had 4 head coaches. 14 years, 4 head coaches on average. Some of them more than that. If we look at individual teams, there's some of them who have more than that. You can absolutely go on a string of head coaches that are just going to totally tank your entire organization. And then you build a losing culture that players don't want to come to, that players are not excited about getting drafted to, and then they are just looking to get out in free agency as soon as they can. That's not what we want. So like I said, I'm not excited he's gone. I'm also not upset that he's gone because I understand why change needed to happen. So I guess when you have those things, I'll say the feeling I'm feeling as a Seattle Seahawks fan is anxiousness, anxiety. What is going to happen next? I am not going to sit here and say I know. There's going to be a lot of people out there that I'm hearing already that they say they know for sure the next head coach is going to get us on the Super Bowl path. That now that we finally moved on from Pete, we can move on to start winning Super Bowls again, or that we're going to consistently get into the playoffs and have playoff success. again, just look around, take in reality, get out of your fantasy land for just a second. Take a look at the reality in the NFL and how hard it is to win in the NFL. Like they always say, don't get tired of winning, because you look around the NFL, there's not a lot of that. There's a lot more coaches getting fired than there are coaches having 14-year careers in one place. But I am excited about the possibilities. Okay, so where do we go next? I'll tell you where I would like to see them go next. Now, I could these. I'm not predicting that these are people that they are going to hire. I have a friend who, anytime I say like I like something or I want something, he feels like I'm saying that, like I'm predicting that's going to happen, and then he'll come and tell me I'm wrong, where I'm just saying, hey, this is something I want to happen, not saying that like this is going to happen. Here's what I would like to happen, just based on things that I know right now. There could be somebody totally out of left field that none of us have thought about that comes in here, gets an interview with John Schneider and Jody Allen, gets hired, and they are that next coach that brings us our next Super Bowl. And I would love that. But just based on my knowledge that I have about coaches that are out there that are going to be available this year, here are some candidates that I would like. My number one candidate right now, Jim Harbaugh. It's real close to number one and number two, but my number one choice, Jim Harbaugh. And a lot of you are going to hate that. A lot of you are going to say, no way. But sorry, he had success in the NFL. He's had success in college. He has just now won a national college championship. Okay? He's also coached in Super Bowl. There's one other coach that has coached in a college championship game and the Super Bowl. Oh, that's Pete Carroll. Who's the only other coach that has done it? Jim Harbaugh. If you're telling me you're not going after the greatest, then again, I feel like you're one of the people who just wanted Pete out just for the sake of having Pete out. If you're telling me you don't want the best of the best just because he was the head coach of the 49ers and he was your rival, and then he's got cheating allegations against him in college now. Oh, really? What happened to Pete? Why did Pete Carroll come to the Seahawks? Well, there was a lot of allegations against USC at the time, right? And there's going to be a lot of sanctions put on that team. All right. Well, Pete Carroll, that made him available to come to the Seahawks. Right now, Jim Harbaugh, also just coming off winning a championship, but with all the cheating allegations, looks like there could be some sanctions that go up against Michigan. Maybe Jim doesn't want to deal with that. Could come back to the NFL, get his chance now at being only the second coach to win a college championship and Super Bowl, because Pete and Jim, they are the only two coaches to coach in a Super Bowl and a college championship. Pete is actually the only one that has won both of those. We all know that Jim Harbaugh lost his Super Bowl that he was coaching. But I sure would love the type of teams that he runs. I think, yes, is he an offensive coach? Yes. I mean, he played quarterback, right? That's his side of the ball. But Pete Carroll talked about how the last couple of years they've had a hard time getting to the identity of the type of team that he wants to be, and that could be any number of things. It could be just the players that you require weren't there, the coaching, the coordinators just weren't getting that messaging, and the play calling wasn't there. But that all starts with Pete, right? That all starts with Pete. So, um, can Jim Harbaugh come in here now and say, "Okay, I know the identity that I want, and I can get to it right away"? New voice in the building, right? And it'd be very similar to what we want to see as Seahawks fans. It'd be very similar to what we've seen with the most successful teams that Pete had. So I sure would love to see that again. And Jim Harbaugh has done a great job of identifying coordinators and hiring those coordinators, defensive coordinators, to run that side of the ball. Because again, uh, a lot of you out there, it sounds like you don't know maybe what uh, the head coach of a football team does. They're not out there. Look around the NFL right now. You could probably count on one hand. It might not even take you your whole hand. All the fingers on one hand to count the number of head coaches that actually call the plays for their team. Pete didn't do that. Jim Harbaugh not going to do that. If he comes, he's going to hire. Hopefully, that's the idea would be. But we've seen throughout his career, he does a great job of identifying that. He's going to hire the best defensive coordinator he can to improve the defense. Something I feel like Pete used to be really good at, and that was one of his flaws. I think in recent years was the last couple defensive coordinators we have seen, and he always likes to hire in building. That was going to be one of my points before we found out that Pete was going to be moving on today. I was going to say, what does Pete need to do moving forward? Because I thought both the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator needed to go. They needed to go. So one of my points was going to be he's got to hire from outside the building. He's got to be able to look outside and say, okay, I can't just hire people within my own coaching staff. I need to look outside. And that actually sounds like, again, I'm just speculating here. I'm not a reporter. I have no inside information, but that actually kind of sounds why maybe they decided to split ways. I mean, in his press conference today, he talked about how he was really fighting for, himself to stay the head coach, but it sounded like part of that meant that he wanted to keep his coaching staff, his coordinators, both offensive and defensive coordinators, and I thought, yeah, those staffs needed to go, and they still do. Apparently, they're still at this moment hired, and the next coach that they hire could come in and say, "Oh yeah, I really like all these people. I'm going to keep them." But that is very, very unlikely, and we don't have to worry about that being the case. John Snyder said that the next head coach is going to have autonomy over the coaching staff. We have seen this in other organizations with GMs where they say, these are the coordinators I hired. We just need a different head coach. And they go out and hire a head coach and say, you have to work with the staff we already have in place. Thankfully, that's not going to happen because that usually doesn't work out very well. But yeah, so I would trust Jim Harbaugh to go out and hire the best head coach, not head coach, the best defensive coordinator that he could to make sure that they improve that side of the ball. And he himself likes a certain style, right? You can go look at all the 49er teams he's had. You could see the pro style defenses he's running with Michigan. I just think he would be an excellent choice. And if you're outright just saying no right from the go, just because, again, he was a 49ers coach, because he's got, um, you know, uh, cheating allegations in college, look to your only coach that won you a Super Bowl, and just look at the parallels and say, hey, maybe the same formula will get us a Super Bowl again. Now, I guess I don't even really want to say my number 2 choice here. This is not my number 2 choice. It would be like my 1B. Okay, Jim Harbaugh's 1A, and then my 1B be Dan Quinn. I would be just as excited for Dan Quinn as I would be for Jim Harbaugh. We see the success that Dan Quinn has had away from the Seahawks. Did it work out for him as head coach? No, he was eventually fired from that job, right? But still, you know, the side of the ball that you would expect to be good there as a head coach while he was head coach was very good. So you see him now just back in the coordinator role for Dallas, and their defense has vastly improved. For me this year, going into the year, I thought the year before the Seahawks defense was the absolute worst defense in all of the NFL. And I thought just this year, with the moves they made, I thought, okay, well, they can at least be an average defense, and that will help this team. If you remember before the season started, I said this team has potential with all the talent that it has, that, they could end up with 12 wins. I said realistically, it's probably 10. And they missed that by 1. But with all the potential there that they have, if everybody's playing to their full potential, you could be looking at a 12-win team. That was not even close to happening on the defensive side of the ball for 11 games out of the 17 games. They went from the first 6 games to being like the number 1 run defense and one of the higher rated defenses overall, to being last on run, and they're ending up somewhere in the 20s for overall defense. This year, I think they improved. They didn't look like the very worst defense in all of the NFL to me, but definitely did not improve enough to get to where we want to be. But I think you bring Dan Quinn in as head coach, he's going to improve that defense right away. And that could get us success right away as well. Because I'm looking at this team, I do not think it needs to be blown up. It does not need to be totally torn down. You need to fix that defense and fix it quickly, so that we can take advantage of all the talent that we have on offense and combine those two things so that we can get into the playoffs and then hopefully make a run. That was my hope for this year. Because we saw this year again with the offensive coordinator that let's just say I'm glad that he's not going to be the offensive coordinator here anymore. We heard that the Chicago Bears requested today to they put in a request to the Seahawks to have an interview with Shane Waldron to go there as their next coach potentially. I say, please take him off our hands. That would be great. Because if the offense alone this year played up to their potential, because I feel like we played under the what should have been the floor of this offense. They should have been way better than they were. I mean, if the offense plays just a little bit better this year, you are looking at 10 wins. But anyways, back to Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn, I think he improves your defense, or the outlook of your defense fast enough that you can be excited about the team getting success right away. Again, because I believe that with John Schneider here helping that process out, and with Dan Quinn and his history, I think he could very easily hire a very good offensive coordinator, and you know, find somebody to unlock the full potential of that, while taking what we have on defense and improving it to at least at least middle of the league defense, and that alone is going to get you into the playoffs. Again, I don't know if it's going to get you Super Bowl right away. Just like this year, I didn't know if it would, but I think that would be enough to improve the record of the team to get you into the playoffs, and then see where you go from there. And then you hire Dan Quinn. That I'm just talking, that would be year one, and then we're talking year 2, 3, 4 down the line. He starts, hopefully drafting players and getting everybody buying into a system. Then you are talking about a consistent playoff team, and making runs in the playoff consistently, like we saw in the beginning of Pete Carroll's run. And hopefully Dan can win it, would get you a Super Bowl in the near future as well. All the coaches I'm wanting right now, they are coaches that I think, yes, they are good enough with their track record to get you a Super Bowl, or not. They don't have to win the Super Bowl, but they're at least getting you in contention quickly. We're not talking about a full tear down. These would be head coaches that they're getting you back into contention quick. To me, that's Jim Harbaugh. That's Dan Quinn. Those are top 2 choices. Now, and again, 1A, 1B for me. My next choice just got fired as well. Again, a coach that we're talking about winning record, taking teams to 3 years out of their 6 years in the playoffs, something that organization had not seen in a long time. Mike Vrabel. That would be another top choice for me. I would ever since he was hired as a head coach at Tennessee, I've been impressed with what he has done with those teams. Nowhere near the amount of talent as an overall roster that any of the Seahawks rosters have been during that time period. But he was always finding a way to win, always finding a way to maximize what he had there. And that's what you want a head coach to come in and do. You want them to come in and maximize what they have. And I think Mike Vrabel does that exceptionally well. I heard some sort of stat today where, during his time period as head coach for the Titans, the 6 years, that, for the, the betting nerds out there, he beat the odds like more than any other coach during that time period. So any time where his team was the underdog in Vegas, he beat those odds more times than any other head coach did during that same 6-year period. So again, he was always maximizing his players. He was doing more with less. And I think that could be something you could really use right now with this defense as well. Again, him being a defensive head coach. So 2 out of the 3 head coaches so far, they would be defensive coaches, because I think that's the thing that needs to be addressed right away. That the mentality around that. So he'd be my next choice. And really, those are my top. Those 3 people there. Those are my 3 choices. I'd say if the Seahawks announce tomorrow, this is our next head coach, I would be very excited, very, very excited about the future of the NFL, or not the NFL, of the Seahawks. Now, of course, you got to talk about some other choices that you'd be excited about, and let me go over those. These are people who have not been head coaches yet to this point, but just based on what they've done as coordinators and their success, I would sure love to give them the first chance to their first chance to be a head coach. One for me, Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions. You bring Ben Johnson in and get him to hire an offensive coordinator that is going to see eye to eye with him on the offense and run the type of offense that they run in Detroit. I sure would love to see that with the roster we have. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, JSN, K9, Charbonnet. Hey, I would love to see that in Seattle. Love to see that. And then we have a bevy of good tight ends here. And then I want you to go look at the Lions roster. Amon St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. You're talking about, again, the weapons very similar to what the Seahawks have, and again, having multiple weapons at the running back position and having 2 different styles, just like we would already have here in Seattle, right? You have your Walker, you have your Charbonnet, just like to mirror your Gibbs and Montgomery, and how you can make great use of both of them at the same time. Like I said, there's so much potential on this offense that was not unlocked this year that somebody like Ben Johnson, I think, could come in and unlock that right away, all that potential. And then you're talking about one of the top offenses in the league. And just that alone, like I said, is going to get you 10 wins. That's why I said this year, like my head told me 10 wins. My heart told me this team could get 12 wins, because I thought, oh, the defense is going to improve too, so they could potentially get up to 12 wins. Well, just looking at it on paper, I thought, that's a 10-win team, and that didn't even happen, again, because they did not unlock the full potential of the offense in my eyes. You bring in someone like a Ben Johnson that can run that type of offense and get that kind of production out of all those same type of players. You're talking, just based on your offense alone, you are talking a 10-win team. So Ben Johnson is one of my choices that I would also be happy about. Again, I'm not going to be as excited as the other 3 choices, because this is somebody who has not done it before. He's not been in the head coach position, but I would be very happy to see him get his first chance here. Another coordinator who has not gotten the chance to be a head coach yet, that I would, just based on his track record as a coordinator, again, it's another offensive one. Okay, so we're talking about another offensive coordinator here, but another one I would love to see, Eric Bieniemy. Uh, you know how well he did all those years there in the Chiefs. Uh, Again, doing more with less. I know you're going to look at the Commanders' record this year and go, "Wow, that's not a good team." But again, you go look at the offense and what he was doing with less players, talent wise, you're going to say, oh, okay, well, they still put up those kinds of numbers with that talent. Well, shoot, if he can do that with talent nowhere near as good as the Seahawks, what's he going to do with Seahawks? And you should already know what he can do with greater talent because you saw what he did with greater talent while he was the coordinator with the Chiefs. So it shouldn't really be a question what he can do with great talent. So those are two coordinators that have not gotten a chance that I would really love to see get a chance in the NFL in general. But if they got a chance with the Seahawks, I would be happy with that. If I don't get my first three choices. Because there's a lot of head coaching vacancies this year. So a lot of these coaches are going to have so many different choices of teams that they can go to. So that means they're going to get a lot of offers, whether it's like going to a team that just wants to give them a lot of money, or they're going to go to a team that's going to give them a lot of money and control of personnel and coaching staff, or even the draft process. They can negotiate all kinds of different things, and with so many vacancies and so many great coaches being out there, I think it's going to take a lot to get a great coach in. So, I don't even have a defensive coordinator in mind, actually, other than Dan Quinn. He's the coordinator, but because he's not currently a head coach, but he has been one before. So, I don't have a defensive coordinator in mind who has not gotten a chance to be head coach yet. That I say, I'm going to be really excited, like I would be about my top three picks, or even somebody that I'd say I'm really happy he's our next hire yet. And this is going off of just today, right? Just looking at most of my thought process today has just been thinking about and reflecting on Pete Carroll's time as a head coach. If I want to take more time and research, the other defensive coordinators are out there that have not been a head coach yet. We'll talk about that on a later episode. I could look around. I might end up looking around and saying like, oh, you know what? Here's a couple defensive coordinators that I would really be happy with if they hired. But right now, just based off of what I know and off the top of my head, coaches I would want right now. Jim Harbaugh, Dan Quinn, Mike Vrabel, Ben Johnson, and Eric Bieniemy. Those would be like my top 5 picks right now. Okay, so that's a little bit about what I hope the Seahawks do going forward. Again, I'm not a journalist. I'm not a beat writer. Nothing. I don't have any sort of inside information. Just as somebody who's just sitting here as a fan, talking to you as a fan. Maybe some of you, are more diehard fans of football like I am. So maybe you are more knowledgeable about football like me, and you have educated reasons why you would want those people to be your next head coach. That's what I'm sitting here talking to you as. Just no inside information, not reporting anything, not saying that this is going to happen. Just saying that these are things that coaches that I would be happy to see and like to see be the next head coaches or the next head coach. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's just again, to me, very very shocking. At this point, I thought, well, maybe he's not. Pete Carroll, that is he's not going to get an extension, and they're going to let him finish out his contract. But because he is the most successful coach in team history, and he did win a Super Bowl, I thought maybe they're going to let him just finish out the contract and see if he can, get one last run. I was not expecting this this year to be the last run. His last game ending in a win, but a win that didn't mean anything to the season because it didn't even get you into the playoffs. So it was very, very, very shocking to me. For now, just not talking about coaching wise, but organization wise, I think we have to be very excited moving forward. In the short term, I wish I could say we could be very excited for a long term deal that is happening here, but unfortunately, and I say this with, I'm being totally sincere here. Unfortunately, Paul Allen wanted the team to be sold. He did not want to leave his team or leave this team and just hand it down to somebody in his family. And I say that is unfortunate because it's turning out to be that Jody Allen is a great owner. Not every NFL team has that. Not every sport team has that. We can look at in our own city, at our own sport teams, and we can say, hey, as fans, we are not very lucky at all to have the last couple of ownership groups that we've had as Mariners fans. The last ownership group didn't do right by the fans. The current ownership group is not doing right by the fans. Jody Allen, she is doing right by the fans by doing what she needs to do what is best for the organization. And she's making tough decisions. You love to see that. Was it an easy decision to move on from Russell Wilson? No, but she was willing to make the decision and say, hey, I think this move will make the team better. I don't think it was a very easy decision at all to move on from Carroll as head coach. Like I said, normally we see a press conference the very next day after the season is over, after they have had their last game. This one took days. That means they had to talk for days about what was going to happen next and what they wanted to do moving forward. You heard Pete talk about how he wanted to fight for his guys, whether it was coaching and players. And just hearing his comments, again, no inside for information. I didn't talk to Pete, but just speculating. He talked about he wanted to be the next coach, and he was fighting for his guys, and that it was very hard to move on from or have to fire more coaches. I don't think he wanted to move on from Shane Waldron and Clint Hurt. He wanted to keep them around because he's he's that type of guy. I don't think that would have been best for the team. So, uh, you know, it, and then also he talked about players saying that in recent interviews on like Brock and Soccer or other local sports shows, he was saying that he's also fighting for players that he thought could come back next year, like uh perhaps Jamal Adams. If he gets back to 100% healthy and plays like he did years ago, that'd be great. But I don't think that's very likely. And if he's fighting, saying like, "Hey, we got to keep this guy too," then that's not what's best for the team either. Um, and again, we have to feel lucky that Jody Allen is willing to step in and say, "No, I don't think that is what is best for the team, Pete." And if you aren't going to be able to move on from these certain uh, people in your coaching staff, if you're not going to be able to move on from certain players, then I need to bring in people that can, because we need to make sure that this team is great as it can be. And that's why we got to feel lucky about the organization going forward, because Jody is making moves consistently now with the Russell Wilson thing, now with Pete. She's making moves to make sure that the organization is going to move on from something that is not giving you the full potential of what you can have. Russell Wilson was not giving you the full potential of what the team could be anymore. And if Pete is not willing to move on from his coordinators and certain players that were holding the team back on this current roster, if he wasn't willing to move on from those players either, then he wasn't going to give you what would he wasn't going to give you what the full potential of this team could be. And if that really is the case, then I'm excited that Jody Allen is willing to make those moves and make those tough decisions. And again, I think it's unfortunate that at some point she's going to have to sell the team. Per Paul Allen's will, I believe there's no exact timeline that they have to sell it by. But I believe that I wonder if you can just ignore that, right? Can you just ignore that is what he wanted in his will? Like, do they have to do that? Can she just keep the team? Because I sure would love that. I don't know. I don't know. I think she's doing a great job right now. We could only hope that if she does sell the team one day, or is forced to sell the team at some point, that they're going to be just as good. You don't want a Jerry Jones here, do you? You don't want a Jerry Jones who's going to come in here, be the owner, but then also make somebody who clearly doesn't know football as much as the coaching and the players, but they're going to want to come in here and make all those decisions. You don't want the Panthers owner, do you? CJ Stroud should have been the #1 quarterback picked in the draft this year, but instead the Panthers trade up to take Bryce Young #1, because that's what the owner wanted. And you saw how that's not even what their head coach wanted, but he's got to deal with it because the owner comes in and says, "Well, that's the guy I want, so we're gonna take him." You don't want that kind of owner, and it does not seem like that's the kind of owner Jody Allen is. I think Paul Allen was very great about saying like, "Hey, I'm the guy with the money, but these are the people with the know-how, and I'm going to hire who I think is the best of the best, and I'm going to trust their their decision making. And I think that's what Jody's doing right now. She's saying, hey, I'm going to hire the best of the best, and I'm going to trust their decision making. And then, if it turns out that it's not sound, then I need to move on to somebody else who I will potentially bring me the best. So, you know, for however long in the future we have Jody Allen, I think we should be very thankful to Jody Allen as well. But I guess this episode is about Pete. Like I said, I wanted to come in here and catch up on all the sports in the city that I've missed out on over the last month and that I haven't got to talk about yet. But I knew, and here I am. We're sitting at this recording now over an hour. I knew that this topic alone had to be its own episode. So here it is. That's the Thank You Pete episode. We're going to bring you other episodes soon where, again, we will go start talking about the rest of the teams in the city. I mean, there's a lot of Mariners news to talk about, even with the horrible ownership that we have right now and what they're making those general managers and coaches deal with. I got to talk about how, I fully admitted here in multiple episodes how I'm not a hockey expert, but I got to talk about how, like, oh man, the Kraken were looking so bad. It was looking like it was going to be a real bad season, and I saw no path for them being able to get back into the playoffs. And now, pretty soon, I'm going to have to come on an episode here and say, wow, I said I'm a dumb NHL fan because it's the sport I know the least, and now it's been proven right. I'm a dumb hockey fan because I'm just a fan. I don't know anything about it. Turns out I was totally wrong about the Kraken. Look, they've just been doing nothing but scoring goals lately and doing nothing but winning lately, and now back into playoff position. I didn't see that happening in that 1 month period that I haven't recorded since literally the last episode that I recorded, where we did a regular episode and talked about all the sports. I talked about how the Kraken were looking so bad this year, and it looked like it was they had no chance for the playoffs. Well, that's looking like a really dumb statement a month later. So we'll talk about that, and we're gonna have to talk about the Seattle Reign. That's right, not the OL Reign. We'll talk about the Seattle Reign and the Queen returning. So excited about that. Again, these are all things I wanted to talk about today that I'm not getting to. That we'll go into more detail. I'm just quickly mentioning them here. Where we got to talk about the Sea Dragons, unfortunately, going away. A lot of things to talk about in the next episode. So we're gonna end this one out. And every podcast that I've done ever, I always like to have some sort of outro saying that I say at the end. It's always like, I like to have some sort of signature thing at the end. And if you've listened to multiple episodes of this one now, you always hear me say the little spiel I say at the end. At the end of it, it always ends with "win forever." Where did I get that from? Pete Carroll. That's his motto. Motto. Win forever. I remember when he wrote his book "Win Forever" in 2011. Got it right away. I'm the kind of football fan since I was a little kid. I'm talking elementary school. When we'd go to the school library, I was going into the sports section. I was reading books about NFL teams in years past. I was reading books from coaches or about coaches. I've just been doing that my entire life. That's the kind of thing that I love and that I'm interested in. I would go into Blockbuster when I rent VHS, like NFL films, seasons on tape of different NFL teams that you could buy and just watch over to watch these old great teams play. Um, that sort of thing. But one of my favorite books that I have ever read about coaching and being a coach and the philosophy of coaching is Win Forever by Pete Carroll. Came out in 2011. Go check it out. Go read it. There's also an audio version. Great listen as well. So, you know, that's the motto. And I included that in the little outro here because, I think that's the sort of mentality that you want to have as a sports fan, right? And that should be some sort of mentality. You should incorporate that into your mentality in life in general, right? Is trying to win. Just win forever at life, right? In every aspect of your life, whether that's your marriage, your raising your kids, working hard at your job. You can apply to everything. Again, go read that book for yourself. One of my favorite books ever about. Again, it's not just about being a coach, but it's about being a coach, about coaching philosophy, and about life. So good stuff. So we'll end this one out. Let me know your thoughts on Pete Carroll stepping away, being removed, however you want to call it, their agreement to part ways as Pete Carroll as head coach. Let me know how you feel about that. What was your initial reaction? That's what I want to know. And then the second thing I want to know is, who do you want to see? You heard my top 5 choices. Who are your choices that you want to see as the next head coach? All right, so please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Again, leave those comments. If you're listening on the podcast version, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, leave a review. That all helps the show grow. And until next time, thanks for listening to the Seattle Sports Show, where we watch legends awaken and breathe fire. So take cover, because with a sea of sound, you will see us rise to reign supreme and win forever.